All right. And welcome everybody to the SFL podcast here for week 2 of the Winter 18 season, all presented by APM Music. I am your host, Jack Brown, and I'm the host of the most, along with my analysts here. We got Mighty RX, owner of the Alaska Storm. We also got Ramos Lynn, owner of the Mexico City Aztecs, who I play for. And we got James Richards, owner of the Indianapolis Red Devils. And for this week, we got some pretty hot stuff here. We're going to be running down what happened last week, along with some of the players and teams of the week. Then we're going to go into a nice little rundown of what happens of what's coming up in week 2. Our analysts are going to take a look at that. And then finally, we're going to end off here tonight with some nice little predictions going into next week. Of course, first off, we had some action happen last week, where only 2 home teams won, both of which, coincidentally enough, started with the letter A. On the 4th of January, the Corsairs beat the Aztecs 24-17. Then, on Sunday, the Vaqueros of San Antonio beat the Dallas Roughnecks in a very close 24-21 game. Then, London got trounced in Atlanta 38-13. Then Dallas won a in-state battle against OKC. OKC's second ever loss opening week. Then the Sioux Falls Sparrows barely edged out the Houston Hyenas 17-12. Then Alaska laid down a beating on the Vancouver Legion 44-17 to end off. And then at 5 again, St. Louis pulled off the upset against the Chicago Wildcats, owned by Shan, who could not be here tonight. Then, after a pretty good drive by Carolina, Tallahassee decided to put the beat down on them, beating them 31-10 in the first ever SFL fan night. Then on Monday night, the Indianapolis Red Devils played an almost arena football game against the San Francisco Sharks. Mighty, what do you have to say about this week? And give us your main guy this week that you say really stood out.
Well, before I get to that, I just want to send out a congratulations to James Richards and Deion Hawkins as the expansion guys getting their first wins in. I know how tough it is to devise a game plan that's kind of good enough to win week 1 without knowing what your opposing team is doing itself. So big ups to that. My player who stood out week 1 was none other than Nathan Lee. I mean, he played in a monsoon. Like, I think they were playing football in a swimming pool Monday night. It was crazy. You couldn't even see them on the screen. That's how bad division was. But he had laser focus enough to throw 5 touchdowns on Monday night against the San Francisco Sharks. Big ups to Nathan Lee there.
Already there. And now, of course, Ramos, who's your really big man this week?
On his rookie debut, Mike Fats Johnson, I think he was incredibly impressive because look at that. I mean, 4 tackles for loss, really stopping stuff in the middle. And there's something that you really cannot really put in stats, which is being disruptive. And even though when he did not get the tackles, he forced the quarterback into some tight throws that ended up being incomplete, or on the running back trying to find another lane, and he was unable to do so. In this case, AJ Francis. I was incredibly impressed with Mike Fats Johnson in his rookie debut. 4 solo tackles, 1 assisted. He had 4 tackles for loss. So I love what I saw from the big guy, the big ugly. I know Mighty loves the big ugly, so I put in Mike Fats Johnson as my player of the week.
The big ugly and the big sexy, literally opposite corners of the country from each other. And finally, for player of the week honors, we have James Richards. James, give us who you thought was the absolute prime player this week.
Well, these are actually Shan's picks, but I'm going to go ahead and agree with him here. I thought Denzel Diaz for the St. Louis Gladiators had an outstanding week. 29 carries, 177 yards. He even contributed in the passing game, and he caught and ran a touchdown in. I thought it was a complete package. I think all the rookies across the board balled out, but this guy, considering the fact that he doesn't have abilities on him yet, he's not fully statted out of his mind. These are the type of numbers we saw last year with gold running backs who, had 3 abilities, 4 abilities. This guy, I don't believe has any at the moment, and he's putting up, late season kind of numbers. That's a big deal. And, if you're St. Louis, you got to feel good for him, right? Because last season we tried some crazy stuff. We got beat down early in the year. Couldn't really get things going. Well, now they started out this year on the right foot, heading in the right direction. And this guy right here, he's going to be a beast this season and definitely a player to watch out for.
Alrighty, and James, now we're going to expand out from player to team. Who was the team that really stood out to you? Was it St. Louis Gladiators?
No, for me it was Tulsa. Again, these are Shan's picks, but I'm agreeing with them for the most part. But yeah, Tulsa. A lot of people were questioning, was the preseason a fluke? What did Deion Hawkins learn while he was in Chicago? We're essentially seeing a more refined Chicago. At this point, we're seeing the way Chicago played last year. Tulsa's really bringing it over this year, and I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing out of Tulsa. It's a complete package. Deion didn't go heavy on one side or the other, and it overall, this team's just performing really well at the early stages of the season.
Definitely. And Mighty, now of course you got to give us, who's the team that really stood out to you, the one that really gave you that, was the X factor for you?
Well, James really touched upon the subject. I got this. I got the St. Louis Gladiators as my team of the week. They've been known to be on the wrong side of opening day debacles, losing 52-13, and then in their inaugural season at Tallahassee. And last season they lost 52-7 to Queen City. The defense really stepped up, came to play that last week. They held JCK. They held him down to 2.3 yards per carry. They forced E.T. King into a bunch of 3rd and long, which then the defense was able to get some pass deflections and timely interceptions off of. And then in turn, James was saying, Denzel Diaz just balled out of his mind with 177 yards rushing, almost 200 yards from scrimmage, because I believe he also had 21 receiving yards along with a touchdown in that area. Ethan Alexander it wasn't flashy. He had less than 50 yards passing, but he had no turnovers, which didn't put his team in a bad situation. They were still allowed to punt the ball and have to defend the whole field, which kind of helped their hand in stopping E.T. King and that formidable Chicago offense.
Alrighty, and as it might have well been spoiled right there, Ramos, give us why you think that your team of the week is, just so good being Devils. Hey, Ramos, can you unmute your mic there, mate?
My bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, we said, I said that how this game was going to be a low scoring game. I thought that this game was going to be we even made the joke of scorigami, 15-11, something like that. But Indianapolis really proved me wrong on bad weather conditions. The quarterback threw the ball all over the yard. And 40 plus points. I don't care if you're on the road, at home, if it's week 1, week 5 in the playoffs, 5 touchdowns, passing the ball is impressive. Every star of the Indianapolis Red Devils scored a touchdown, which is fantastic for them. And I really like their defense, how they played. I think they played very balanced. So I really love the Indianapolis Red Devils this week.
Alrighty, and that wraps up our week 1 breakdown. Of course, now we're going to head into some week 2 action. Starting off at 3 p.m., we have 2 Eastern Conference teams that both took some pretty hard L's last week, those 2 being the Mexico City Aztecs and the Carolina Skyhawks, both in prime time. James, why don't you give us a little rundown and break what we can expect in this game?
To be honest, I have no idea what to expect. I know Ramos's pedigree, being a championship coach. I know last week was tough for him to watch, but I know he went back to the shed, got it figured out, and hopefully he'll be able to shake off the week 1 rust. We'll call it the championship hangover, if you will. Sometimes things don't work, just the way you intended them to. And then this year, we are moving into a progression era. It's a lot tougher. Teams are relying on similar builds as to what they had last year. They're definitely starting out slow. But here's the thing. I think Mexico City will peak at the end of the year. I think Mexico City, Chicago, there's several teams around the league that are building to peak at the end of the year. Once their players get all their stats and abilities on point, they'll make that push for the playoffs at the end. Very similar to what Queen City does, towards the, end of the year. Every year they come on strong and then they have a good playoff run. With that said, they lost to a very good Queen City team, and they love to run the ball. Same old coming out of Queen City. They ran the ball. No surprise there. So I think out of both of these teams, I think Carolina has the bigger thing to prove to all of us here. And if they can pull off a win somehow here against Mexico City, well, I mean, the sky's the limit for them this season. But overall, I think Mexico City's going to take this one down, and Carolina's going to have to do some soul searching here.
Yeah, Carolina's certainly not living up to the hype from last week going into this week. Also, that same time, we got a battle in our country's heartland between the Oklahoma City Renegades and the Sioux Falls Sparrows. My man Mighty, why don't you give us a little bit of your taste of this game?
You know how I do. I deep dive, go back into history, see how these teams have fared against each other, and how everything, So going back in their matchups, Oklahoma City versus Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is 3-1 against Oklahoma City, including being 3-0 at home. All that being said, we've known Oklahoma City to be kind of a running team, leading on Brewski to kind of turn the yards and keeping the team on balance and having Red Feather contribute where he may. This is a new day and age. Oklahoma City, last week they chucked the ball, I believe 56 times all over the field. Deacon Nickens was out there just throwing the ball to whomever wanted to, catch it, and even the ones that didn't want to. I don't know if that's the recipe that OKC wants to go into Sioux Falls with. We know AJ got that Sioux Falls defense looking right. Sioux Falls is always kind of defensive team. That's kind of their bread and butter. Redford last week for Sioux Falls also was a workhorse. He had, I believe, around 40 offensive touches. So they're looking to matriculate the yards through Redford, and then when time maybe when the team gets nosy, hit him over his head with a big play. I really like Sioux Falls this game just because I don't know if OKC is looking to be, heavily reliant on passing the ball, and if they are, I cannot see them walking out there with a win. Not against Sioux Falls, the way Sioux Falls likes to play defense, and they're and how they invested into that secondary.
Alrighty. And now we're going to head out to the Western Conference here and down to the state of Texas as the Alaska Storm is going to face off against the Houston Hyenas. The Alaska Storm coming off a big win over rival Vancouver. Houston coming off of, a very close loss. Ramos, give us what we can see from this.
Yeah, I really like the Hyenas defense last week. I think that they did a pretty good job on the Sioux Falls Sparrows, and I think that they have a lot of potential. But the fact, and Sioux Falls has a tremendous defense, but the fact that they only were able to score 12 points is kind of worrying at the same time. And I'm not sure if they can stop that Alaska offense, really, because it's not only the receivers that obviously take the spotlight because they are the big name guys, but also that running back. He scored 3 touchdowns last week, and I think that he probably will not have a similar production, but I think he will be in the paint this week as well with 1 score. So the question will be if Houston can find their offense, can get a little bit more firepower on their offense, if they can score touchdowns this time. I think that's going to be very, very important. I will lean towards Alaska in this game in the mid-20s, probably something like 27-21. I will go with the Storm.
Okay, that's interesting there. We're going to also stay out west and, stay in the state of Texas here as the San Francisco Sharks are going to be doing battle against the San Antonio Vaqueros. The San Francisco Sharks obviously coming off that harsh loss to Indianapolis, and San Antonio getting a nice little win there against Dallas. Ramos, again, we're going to keep you in Texas. Who do you think is going to win this?
Well, I do like the San Antonio Vaqueros to take this as well. I said last week how I thought Dallas was going to win by maybe 3 or 4 points, but it will not surprise me if San Antonio gets the dub. In this case, I really like San Antonio's balanced team overall in favor of the San Francisco Sharks team. That as well as the Houston case, they need to find their offense, and very important, they need to learn and they need to stop the pass. Last week, obviously, Indianapolis was able to throw the ball all over the yard. I mean, the quarterback, Nathan Lee, had the same amount of incompletions as touchdowns. That's 5. He went 27 from 32 and 5 tubs. So I do like San Antonio, again, in the 20s, probably 27 to 17, probably 27-20. We'll go with the Vaqueros.
Okay, there. Okay. Now we're going to be heading back up to the Central Conference, in particular the state of Illinois, where the Tulsa Desperados are looking to keep up their momentum from last week, heading in against a Chicago team with a pretty big chip on their shoulder, losing to rival team St. Louis. Mighty, what are we going to expect from this? Do tell us.
Well, seeing that this is the Desperados' first season, this is the first ever matchup between these two teams. This is also the first ever matchup between Deion Hawkins and the team he used to play for, and the Chicago Wildcats. So with all that being said, we have a pupil versus master, a Daniel San versus, Mr. Miyagi. I know Shan would appreciate that if he was here, kind of deal going on. Now, with Deion having some kind of knowledge of how things work in Chicago, that might give him a leg up in that instance. But going into the actual matchups, Deion, the running back, there is not only is he the feature back, he's also kind of like the engine that gets the Desperados going. Now, I understand that last week he didn't have much success yardage wise, but they still gave him ample carries and also ample looks in the passing game. So as he's able to keep the chains kind of shorter, helping their offense move the ball down the field and matriculate to keep the offense on time, so the quarterback, is not left back there. Sir Charles is left back there having to convert a bunch of 3rd and long. Can Chicago take that away completely? And as well, it's in the same way, Chicago and JCK have the same type of offense where they expect JCK to move the sticks for them to kind of keep the downs on time, so E.T. King could have a better purview and have take advantage of what the defense offers them. I don't believe Chicago will be able to do that with JCK for the second consecutive week. And I believe Deion is able to get loose. Chicago last week struggled still stopping Denzel Diaz, for the St. Louis Gladiators. And they're going to have their hands full this coming week with Deion Hawkins, as he's the same type of explosive back coming out the backfield. And if they're not able to slow that down to, in turn, slow down the Tulsa's offense, with JCK not able to, contribute on offense properly, that would be way too much to leave on the shoulders of E.T. King now. Not saying he's not capable, but to have to do this on a regular basis, I don't like his chances against the Tulsa defense. Give me Tulsa in this matchup.
Okay there, okay. Now, before we go into the primetime matchups this week, we have one more. The Dallas Roughnecks are going to be heading off to Buffalo, New York, to take on the Queen City Corsairs, which I'm pretty sure wins the award for most confusing name in the SFL. My boy Ramos, my boss man, give us one more rundown before we head into these primetime slam downs.
This of all the games, I think here in week 2, other than my game, obviously, I think this is the one that intrigues me the most. By one, because it's one team that is on our division that already beat us in Queen City, and by number 2, because this is a rematch of the SFL's championship game in Season 8, when the Queen City Corsairs were able to get trophy number 4 against the Dallas Roughnecks. I think it will be very important for these two teams to see how their safeties play. More than anybody else in the front 7, how their safeties are able to stop the run and stop the pass. Queen City's passing attack will be very underrated this season, I will say. Uh, Probably they don't have the receivers in the 90s as far as value goes, but they're very effective in kind of doing a spread offense, short and immediate passes. Out of these two teams, I will probably give the edge to Queen City in this ball game. They are at home. I will go Queen City by a score of 17-13.
Taking those low-scoring games, of course, we know the wrath of the Queen City offense here from last week. Now, of course, we're going to be barreling through the prime time lineup. First off, in SFL Fan Night, we have the Atlanta Swarm taking on the Tallahassee Pride, who've won 2 consecutive SFL Fan Nights in a row. That really goes to show the activity base of those Tallahassee players. First off, we're going to start with Mighty. What are we to expect from this team, which is actually close to your home? Well,
Did a quick deep dive upon these two matchups. It's a very, nip and tuck series, very even. Tallahassee currently holds the edge. They're 3-2 against the Atlanta Swarm, including being 3-0 at home. But last week, Tallahassee had trouble stopping AJ Francis of the Carolina Skyhawks. They got a big game out of Duke Wilson, though, which kind of was able to, run away with that ball game there. Atlanta's defense is a whole different kind of defense, though. Like after Alaska, Atlanta's defense is kind of dominant, should I not say? So, will they be able to stop BDG from doing his damage on the ground? Can Tallahassee find chinks in Atlanta's armor to be able to move the ball and score some points on the board? Because I see this game being in the high teens, maybe low 20s. As a result, I don't think Tallahassee will be able to slow down BDG enough to walk out of here with a win. And this will be the first time that the road team in this matchup will win the matchup. I like the Swarm in this one here.
Okay. Let's send it over to our other main analyst, Ramos. Do you agree here with Mighty, or are you going to have to pull Lee Corso here and say not so fast?
Man, this is. I will not surprise if this game goes to overtime. I really will not be surprised if this game goes to overtime. And I will go the other way. I will go with Tallahassee. They are at home. I think that if this game gets close at the end, I think that they will be able, just by a hair, to pull this one off. I'm calling 2 eyes in a row that Fats Johnson will have a very good game. I'm leaning towards Tallahassee, probably 20-17.
Okay. I see where you're coming from there, Ramos. Okay. Of course, now with that, we're going to be barreling down into our Monday night brawls. First off, Monday at 6 p.m. for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we have what I'm going to affectionately call the Colony Bowl between the Vancouver Legion of Canada and the London Knights of the United Kingdom. So, James, since you haven't talked in a while, what do you think is going to come out of this Colony Bowl?
Not a lot, to be honest. I don't want to offend either team. I didn't like either, the way either team looked for the most part, especially Andy, we always expect a ton of points out of Vancouver. And I think, he got caught in some defensive formations and some press coverages that he didn't want to be in, and it torched him. Although London, I don't know if how much breakdown Liam's done on this Vancouver offense, but if he doesn't put up a ton of points, then we could see ourselves sitting here like literally a 10-3, 10-7 type game. So the defensive-minded people will love it, but for me, I just want to see points. I want the arena football game, but I got Andy's Vancouver Legion winning. We'll go 10-7 will be my final score.
Yeah, really. League's dead in around 2 years. Ramos, who do you think is going to win out of these two fellow international SFL teams?
I will go with a little bit of what James said. I think this is going to be very low scoring as well. I think that in this week, Vancouver and London will find a little bit more of their offense, but still, I really like those two defenses. I will lean towards Vancouver to win this game because of the experience, because I just think that they will be able to fix some of their quote unquote problems that they had last week a little bit faster. I will go Vancouver around 19-10.
Okay, so we're looking for a pretty low-scoring game here. Mighty, are you gonna agree with these two here? Say Vancouver, or are you gonna go with the Knights of London?
Well, see, this is their first ever matchup. Vancouver making the trek over the pond. I'll say this: the London Knights have yet to score an offensive touchdown. The touchdown they scored last week was off a kick return. Their offense struggled mightily against, one of the better defenses in the league, in the Atlanta Swarm. Vancouver's defense is a little more different. They don't, shut you down. They play a lot of bend but don't break. Can London execute multiple drives to score touchdowns and not field goals against them? I don't see that quite yet out of London to be able to execute in that fashion. And we know the experience of Tom Pepper and, spreading the ball around to all his weapons out there. I like Vancouver as well to pull that one out.
Okay. And so that is our first Monday night game for MLK Day. The other game we got the St. Louis Gladiators playing against the Indianapolis Red Devils. James, as the owner of the Red Devils, what do you see coming into this game for you?
Well, I anticipate a lot of what we saw out of St. Louis last week, a lot of running. They're going to give the ball to Diaz. It was a pretty balanced attack, both inside and out. So a lot of St. Louis's success is, one, how good, will their defense hold up? And two, is Indy able to shut down Diaz? I think our team specifically, we use the nickel packages. Our DBs are built like linebackers with a lot of abilities to tackle and close down on people. So I think we'll be able to take away the outside runs, the inside runs. Last week we were able to do it without our outside linebacker even in the game. This week we got him in the game, so I anticipate even more production and squeezing down on top of them. I think early on in the season, a team like Indianapolis will always have the advantage because the defenses haven't necessarily got the abilities to shut down the passing game. So I think there will be a lot of windows, and I think Nathan will have a repeat of last week.
Okay, so having confidence in your team there, James. I like that. I like it. Mighty, what do you have to say going between these two? Who's going to come out on top?
I like Indy this week. The only way I could see St. Louis coming in there and winning is for Ethan Alexander to have like the game of his life against that loaded defensive backfield, because Denzel Diaz will get his, but not the way he got his last week. I could see him maybe getting, 90, maybe 100 yards rushing total. They're going to need to throw the ball to win, and I don't know if Ethan Alexander can do it against that Red Devils defense. So give me the D, and I like him for the win.
All right, so you're giving the D the W. And finally, Ramos, before we head into our picks, what are we to expect from this game from your ever such wise perspective?
Well, I will piggyback of what they just said. I think that Indianapolis will be able to win this game. I think that St. Louis secondary will do a better job, and their defense overall will do a better job. I don't see Indianapolis probably scoring again 40-plus points, but I like Indianapolis to win this game. I think Denzel Diaz will have his carries, will have his long runs, but I will go with Indianapolis probably 24-17.
Okay. And before we wrap up here, folks, we're going to go into some picks. The only one who got any of their picks right last week was Mighty, and he got both of his correct. So, you know what, Mighty? Since you clearly have the prediction know-how, give us your picks this week, man.
It's your boy. This week, my lock of the week, take to the bank. Put your mortgage on it. I like the Mexico City Aztecs over the Carolina Skyhawks. And my upset of the week is the Indianapolis Red Devils over the Gladiators. Like, upset, they're an expansion team. Exactly. They're an expansion team. St. Louis has been around. That's why I like them.
Sorry about that. I see where you come from there. Next up, we got James. Who do you think is going to come out on top for this week?
I don't necessarily agree with Shan's picks here. I like his lock. I think Alaska is performing on all cylinders. I think Houston's still shaking off the rust. This upset, Carolina over Mexico City, not so fast, my friends. I have a hard time picking a lot of teams over Mexico City ever. I just have that much faith in Ramos. So Shan's going with the Carolina over Mexico City. I don't believe so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Sham was thinking here.
Alrighty, and real quick before we go, Ramos, give us your lock, give us your upset.
First of all, I don't want to curse any of these two teams because my last week picks were absolutely horrendous, terrible, forgettable. But anyway, I have my luck as the Sioux Falls Sparrows against the Oklahoma City Renegades. I see more about Sioux Falls. I don't think Oklahoma City will be able to score probably more than 14 points this game. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but that's just so good the Sioux Falls defense is. And my upset, I will go with Chicago over Tulsa. I don't want to really call it an upset because Chicago is the defending Eastern Division Conference champions. But a lot of people is jumping in the Tulsa bandwagon, including me. I will be honest with you all. But a lot of people speaking Tulsa. I will go with Chicago in this game. I don't see them going 0-2. I really don't.
Alrighty, boys. So now let's all hop into that Tulsa bandwagon and ride off into this great Saturday night. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the SFL podcast this week, presented by APM Music. I am Jack Brown, along with my analysts, Ramos Lynn, Mighty RX, and James Richards, saying so long and thanks for tuning in.